again. I can't wait to meet everybody. So, I'm going to go over anxiety disorders. And so, now that we have a hold on what the DSM looks like, this will probably be a little bit smoother. So, anxiety, I'm sure, is something that most of us are familiar with. Certainly, I know I am. So, anxiety is really interesting because it is both a diagnosis and a symptom, right? Isn't that kind of interesting? This is one of the really cool things that you see in our field is that when you're working with someone, they're really anxious, and that anxiety can be a function of something else, right? It's normal to have anxiety, such as I have a test, a job interview, I'm going on a date, whatever it might be, you have some anxiety. And the anxiety can also be the problem, such as with an anxiety disorder. And you can have anxiety because of a different diagnosis, right? So it is common. So one of the things that you can do to prevent overdiagnosis is saying, this is one of those things where they have anxiety. I could diagnose an anxiety issue, but is the anxiety better explained by these other circumstances, right? Is it really that they have generalized anxiety disorder and they're anxious all the time for no reason, or is it that this person moved, they started a new job, a relationship just ended, they just graduated, and maybe they're just kind of nervous because they don't know what they're going to do with the next steps in their life, right? So that's an easy way to help prevent overdiagnosis. So let's kind of dig into the building blocks, just like the mood and bipolar disorders had building blocks made of mood episodes. Anxiety is typically built upon agoraphobia and panic attacks, right? And that sounds very strange, but you'll see that once people kind of dip their toe into agoraphobia or have a panic attack, anxiety becomes much more noticeable with these clients. So agoraphobia, I'm afraid to go out. So, and you may have heard this term, right? Or seen it on TV and stuff like that. Well, what are they afraid of? Well, it's really fear that something terrible is going to happen, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be bad. And it's not always something like I'm afraid if I step outside, I'm going to get mugged or attacked, although there are people who think that. It could also be I'm going to go outside and everybody's going to laugh at me. I'm going to go outside and I'm just going to have a bad day. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen if I leave. And panic attacks, sudden onset of high level severe anxiety. So let's look at these a little bit more. Agoraphobia, and these two will go hand in hand. Agoraphobia, I don't like being away from home. I don't like traveling. I want to be at home. The issue is wanting to have control. I don't want this terrible thing to happen, whatever it is. And I get really anxious when I'm outside of my comfort zone. The problem, and that can be said of a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. What we're talking about with agoraphobia, though, is an intense fear, an intense anxiety about leaving. Panic attacks can feed into that agoraphobia. So anybody that's had a panic attack knows it is just awful, right? You feel like you're dying, right? Your heart rate skyrockets. You get the cold sweats. There's some shaking, shortness of breath, and panic attack is one of those things that the term gets thrown around really easily, right? So it could be that I misread the syllabus and I saw that the paper was due today and I just about had a panic attack. Oh my goodness, I had a panic attack when I saw a spider in the shower, right? Um, these are not that. Like those are really intense feelings, absolutely. I had a panic attack because I almost got hit by a car. No doubt your anxiety was up or your adrenaline was pumping. However, a panic attack is a really specific thing. They're typically relatively short lived, like from the outsider looking in. When you're experiencing them, like it goes on forever. You have those physical sensations, the trouble breathing, chest pain. Uh, People can have them once in a while. Unfortunately, there are people who have them multiple times a week, if not multiple times a day. The attacks typically come on abruptly, right? They just sort of start creeping up. What I have come to learn is that there are some people for whom it feels like it came out of left field, out of the blue. It just hit me. And some people, after some counseling, um, will start to understand one is creeping up. They don't always know it's a panic attack. A lot of people wind up thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm having a heart attack or something. But they have it, and over time they get familiar with. Okay, I think I'm gonna have a panic attack. Let me start to engage my strategies to prevent it. What happens is people who have a panic attack once get really scared it's going to happen again. And I don't want that. So I start avoiding and eliminating things out of my life so that it won't happen. And then what happens if I'm driving and it happens? What happens if I'm stuck in traffic? What happens if I'm on an airplane? What happens if I'm on a date? Like these really human things. What happens if what do I do if I have a panic attack when I'm making the big sales pitch, right? These really human situations of like, I don't want that to happen again. So let me avoid situations where it either would happen or if it does happen, I'm in control. They can be easily treated. The hard part is helping identify them and the client getting familiar with what it feels like to be calm and what it feels like when one is creeping up, and then finding what works for them. So, mindful meditation, mindful breathing, doing something to kind of self soothe or distract, right, for a few minutes can really go a long way. I'll show you all some of those when we meet. They can be cued, right? So I know when I go on the highway, I'm prone to have them. I know if I have a phobia, I know it can lead to a panic attack. It can be completely, I'll say, unprovoked, unexpected. Nothing happens. It just pounces on me. So this is really important to distinguish that we have panic attacks and we have panic disorder. If there is another diagnosis, someone has bipolar disorder, since we covered that. They have bipolar 2 disorder, let's say, and they've had a panic attack. We'd say they have bipolar 2 disorder with panic attacks. Panic disorder is when there isn't another diagnosis, right? It's just everything else is fine. They just have these really inexplicable panic attacks. We say panic disorder. So a panic disorder diagnosis means you're saying, yeah, they have panic attacks and no other diagnosis. Panic attack is you're saying they have this diagnosis and also panic attacks. Why they split that up that way, I don't know. But I'm going to try and find an answer. Now we turn our attention to phobias. Everybody's heard. In fact, just this afternoon, I watched Arachnophobia. What a great movie. Freaked my wife out. It was great. So here, there's an unwarranted fear of specific objects or situations. And you all know what this is. I have a phobia of blood, of spiders, of needles, of snakes, dogs, whatever it may be. But this is not the normal, maybe fear response that we would expect from people. Like, if I saw a snake, I wouldn't probably sit there like, oh, geez, it's a snake. I'd probably freak out a little bit, right? A phobia, though, is you start describing a snake you saw, and I start panicking, right? In the case of a needle phobia, notoriously, there's passing out. There is a vasovagal response, so this is you start tightening everything up, right? You lock your knees and your arms, you stop breathing, and the blood vessels restrict, blood flow stops, and the person passes out, right? And you would be surprised how many people have this. I used to work at a university that had multiple medical professions, and I would get these medical students or pharmacy students or nursing students who would come and they're going really far. They're far in their program. They're doing the final lap, and now they got to start doing this stuff. And they see the needle, and either they're getting a shot, or they're giving a shot, or they're watching the administration of one, and they pass out. Right, and if they don't pass out, they get really ill, right, sick to their stomach. They can't focus. The cold sweat. They're looking pale, and just they're looking like they're having a hard time. This is fairly common, right? So phobias. Well, let's see if I have another slide. Phobias are not just the typical fear response, like, ew, I hate seeing spiders. This would be you could not stomach to see one on TV. Describing one would make you intensely uncomfortable. Seeing one would be kind of paralyzing. Social anxiety, again, another one that most people are familiar with. Some people call it social phobia. Its official name is social anxiety. So this is, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something that's going to be a kind of a social faux pas, right? Like I'm going to trip and fall. I'm going to use the wrong word. I'm going to go give a presentation, and with my luck, I'm going to have, like mustard on my tie or something like that. And so I don't want to go do it. It's very difficult. It's not that I don't want the social interaction. It's that I'm really scared of it. And maybe I'll just try tomorrow. Maybe I'll try later. Generalized anxiety disorder, just like it sounds like, the symptoms are pretty amorphous. They're kind of just vague, very nebulous. The anxiety is low level but chronic, so it's not to the degree of like a panic attack or a phobia. Symptoms can be common, like everybody has worries here and there, like I gotta take back the red box, I gotta pay this bill, I gotta get this work done. Generalized anxiety disorder is really worrying about all sorts of things, and sometimes feeling, especially with little ones like kids, you say, what's bothering you? You seem so nervous, and maybe all they can get out is, I am nervous. Well, why? I don't know, right? I just feel anxious. The degree of impairment is usually not severe. They're able to get things done. So this is one where they are going in, and the significant distress here, the significant problem here, is the personal level of distress. I don't like feeling this way. I feel like I can't ever rest. Separation anxiety, notably in kids. It's incredibly rare. It can happen in adults, but it's usually because it happened in childhood and did not go away. Separation anxiety, little ones, especially like toddlers and, I guess even up to preteen years, it's normal for them to want to be around their caregiver, or, if they have like a love object, like, a stuffed animal or a blanket or something like that. As they get older, which is where we would typically start seeing the problem, because when they're young, you just, like, 2-year-olds want to be with their caregiver. When they're going to school, what happens is it gets looked at as they just really don't want to go to school. And lots of kids don't want to go to school. Here, though, it would be they go to school, and it's like pulling teeth, right? It's a big ordeal in the morning getting them out the door. When they get to school, they would most likely be very observably anxious and worried. wanting to go to the nurse a lot, wanting, if I can't go home, can I at least talk to mom and dad? But the other big tell is when they don't want to go to friends' houses, to birthday parties, stuff that kids would normally want to do. And so they go and they can't last very long before they want to check on the mom and dad or the caregiver. And that can take the form of wanting to call. Now it would also be FaceTiming, text, all of that. And when they're not able to get the, for lack of a better word, the fix, they get really anxious. And so we would expect a child with separation anxiety to not want to stay the night at a friend's house, not go to parties where mom and dad aren't there, and not be away in general. And selective mutism. So this is, again, this is mostly in children, almost entirely in children. A child who can speak but is choosing not to, right? So anxiety or fear, so great that they won't communicate. They might find other ways to communicate. You know, they might point. So if you took your child to like daycare or to school, they might point or pantomime, like drinking, holding a bottle up to their mouth to indicate that they're thirsty, or miming, you know, eating a sandwich or something to indicate that they're hungry, pointing at toys and stuff. And so the trick here is ruling out, is there some kind of language issue? Is there an actual neurodevelopmental issue with language? Is there a language issue in the form of not understanding or not knowing how to speak the language? We have taken care of all that, right? This is someone who we know, based on family reports or doctor reports, they can speak and they know the number of words that they should know for their age and stage. They are allowed to speak their native language. They speak at home. They speak with their best friend. But when they go to school, it's like they will not communicate even under duress. Like, you need to answer the question, or you're gonna have to change your color or go to timeout, or you won't get to like participate with movie day or whatever it might be. Or if a babysitter comes, they're not communicating, right? However, they do communicate when they're more comfortable. And that's it for your anxiety disorders. That's another section down. Yay! Well, that's going to do it for this one. We're going to review all this and so much more on Monday. I hope each of you as well. There's the recording that I just finished. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.